The alarm bells rang through the Kepler-7 research station like angry birds screaming in the night. Dr. Jiho Park looked up from his coffee cup as red lights flashed across the main hall. He had been studying pictures of strange plants from distant worlds when the emergency signal broke his peaceful morning. "All hands to emergency stations," came the voice over the speakers. "We have received a priority distress call from planet Viridia. This is not a drill." Jiho pushed his glasses up his nose and hurried toward the main command center. His white lab coat flapped behind him as he walked quickly through the metal hallways. Other beings rushed past him, tall blue creatures with crystal skin, short, green aliens with too many arms, and robots that moved on wheels instead of legs. Commander Nari Kim stood in the center of the command room, her black hair pulled back tight. She pointed at a big screen showing a planet covered in purple and gold colors. "The Viridian government sent this message 3 hours ago," she said to the gathering crowd. "A plague has hit their world. Most of the adult population is gone." Jiho felt his stomach drop. The Viridians were cat-like people who lived in family groups. They were known across the galaxy for being peaceful and kind. He had always wanted to meet them, but not like this. "What kind of plague?" asked Dr. Sunwoo Bae, the station's chief medical officer. She was a tall woman with worry lines around her eyes. "Unknown," Nari replied. "It spread fast and hit only the adults. The children were not affected by the sickness, but they are now alone. The Viridian Council says the cubs are in a bad mental state. They need help right away." Jiho raised his hand. "Cubs? That's what they call their young ones," explained Captain Minho Choi, who had just entered the room. He was a small man, but his voice was strong. "Viridian children stay as cubs until they reach 15 years old. Then they become adults." Nari nodded and looked around the room. "I need a rescue team ready in 2 hours. Medical staff, food specialists, and anyone who knows about taking care of children." Her eyes stopped on Jiho. "Dr. Park, I want you there too. You know more about alien life than anyone else on this station." Jiho felt nervous but excited. This would be his first real mission off the station. "I'll get my equipment ready," he said. 2 hours later, Jiho sat in the rescue ship, looking out the window as they traveled through space toward Viridia. The ship was full of different kinds of beings, all trying to help. There were crystalline healers whose skin looked like living diamonds. Their leader, Zenth, could fix almost any injury by touching it with his crystal fingers. Next to them sat 3 aquatic beings from the water world of Oceanus. They were blue and moved like they were still swimming even in the air. Their species was known for feeling other people's emotions and helping with mental pain. "First time on a rescue mission?" asked Lieutenant Hyun Sato, sitting next to Jiho. She was recording everything on a small device. "I've been on 12 of these trips. It never gets easier when children are involved." Jiho nodded. "I usually just study plants and small animals in my lab. This is very different." The ship's captain announced they were getting close to Viridia. Through the window, Jiho could see a beautiful planet with purple oceans and golden land masses. But as they got closer, he noticed something wrong. The cities looked empty and dark. They landed near a settlement called Moon Whisper Grove. Jiho expected to see Viridians waiting for them, but the landing area was empty. The buildings were made of smooth white stone that curved like seashells. Gardens with strange purple flowers grew everywhere, but no one was taking care of them. "Stay together," Commander Kim ordered as they left the ship. According to the distress signal, there should be about 40 cubs in this settlement. The rescue team spread out and began searching the buildings. Jiho followed Dr. Bae into what looked like a school. The rooms had small chairs and toys scattered on the floor. Drawings covered the walls, pictures of families with adult Viridians and their cubs. "Hello," Dr. Bae called out in a gentle voice. "We are here to help. Is anyone here?" A small sound came from under a table in the corner. Dr. Bae moved slowly toward it and kneeled down. "It's okay," she said softly. "We won't hurt you." Suddenly, a small, furry face appeared from under the table. The cub looked like a kitten, but was the size of a human 5-year-old. Its fur was golden with dark stripes, and its eyes were bright green. The moment it saw Dr. Bay, it made a scared crying sound and ran away deeper into the building. "You see that?" Dr. Bay asked Jiho. "The poor thing is terrified." They heard similar sounds from other buildings. The crystalline healers tried to approach cubs hiding in a kitchen, but the young ones ran away screaming. The aquatic empaths found a group of cubs in a garden, but when they tried to get close, all the cubs climbed up trees and would not come down. "This is strange," said Zenth, the crystal healer. His voice sounded like music. "Usually young beings can sense that we want to help them. These cubs seem to be afraid of everyone." Commander Kim gathered the team in the main square of the settlement. "Report," she said. "We found 38 cubs so far," said Captain Choi. "All of them run away when we try to get close. They won't take food or water from any of us." "The aquatic team tried using their emotional sensing abilities," reported Lieutenant Sato. "But the cubs just get more scared when they approach." Bay looked worried. "Some of these cubs look very thin. They haven't been eating properly. If we can't get close to them, we can't help them." Jiho listened to all the reports and felt confused. In all his studies of alien species, he had never heard of young animals being afraid of people who wanted to help them. Usually, children of any species could tell the difference between friends and enemies. "Maybe they need time," he suggested. "They just lost their families. They might not trust anyone right now." "We don't have time," Commander Kim said. "Some of these cubs are getting sick from not eating. We need to figure out how to help them. Today." As if to prove her point, they heard a weak crying sound from a nearby building. It was the sound of a cub in pain. Without thinking, Jiho started walking toward the sound. "Dr. Park, wait!" called Commander Kim. But Jiho was already at the building entrance. He stepped inside and saw a small cub lying on the floor. Its golden fur was dull and its breathing was slow. The little one was very sick and weak. Jiho kneeled down next to the cub and spoke softly. "Hey there, little one. I know you're scared, but I want to help you." What happened next shocked everyone. The sick cub opened its green eyes and looked at Jiho. Instead of running away or crying, it made a soft purring sound. Slowly, very slowly, the little cub crawled toward the human. "What is happening?" whispered Dr. Bay from the doorway. The cub reached Jiho and gently touched his hand with its small paw. Then it curled up next to him and continued purring. Its breathing became stronger and deeper. "I don't understand," Jiho said quietly. "Why isn't it afraid of me?" From outside, they heard more sounds. Other cubs were coming out of their hiding places and moving toward the building where Jiho sat. Soon, 5 more cubs appeared in the doorway. They looked at all the other rescue team members with fear, but when they saw Jiho, they walked right up to him. In minutes, Jiho was surrounded by 6 small cubs, all purring and seeking comfort from the human. They ignored everyone else completely. "Commander." Kim stared at the scene with wide eyes. "In 20 years of rescue work," she said slowly, "I have never seen anything like this." The mystery had begun. Dr. Jiho Park sat very still as 6 Viridian cubs pressed close to him. Their warm fur tickled his arms, and their soft purring filled the quiet room. He was afraid to move too fast and scare them away. The other rescue team members watched from the doorway like they were seeing magic happen. "How is this possible?" whispered Dr. Sunwoo Bay. She took a small step forward to get a better look. Immediately, the cubs stopped purring and pressed closer to Jiho. Their green eyes watched her with fear. "Don't move closer," Jiho said softly. "They get scared when you do." Commander Nari Kim spoke into her communication device. "This is Kim. To base station. We have a strange situation here. The cubs will only approach our human team member. Request immediate guidance. The voice that came back sounded confused. Say again, Commander. Did you say only the human? That is correct. Dr. Park seems to be the only one they trust. Lieutenant Hyun Sato held up her recording device from far away. I'm getting all of this on video. The Galactic Council is going to want to see this. One of the cubs, smaller than the others, looked up at Jiho with big eyes. It made a soft mewing sound and touched his hand again. Jiho smiled and very gently patted its head. The cub's purring got louder. They're so thin, Jiho said, looking at their small bodies. When did they last eat? The distress signal said the plague hit 5 days ago, Commander Kim replied. They might not have eaten since then. Jiho looked at Dr. Bay. Can you slide some food over here? Not too close, just close enough that I can reach it. Dr. Bay carefully placed a container of emergency food rations on the floor and pushed it toward Jiho. The cubs watched her movements but stayed calm as long as she didn't get too close. Jiho opened the container and found small protein bars inside. He broke off a piece and offered it to the smallest cub. The little one sniffed it carefully, then took a tiny bite. Its eyes got wide and it started eating faster. Soon, all 6 cubs were sharing the food that Jiho gave them. At least they're eating now, said Captain Minho Choi from outside the building. But we can't leave Dr. Park here forever. We have 32 more cubs to find in this settlement alone. And there are 6 more settlements on this planet with the same problem, added Commander Kim. She rubbed her forehead like she had a headache. How are we going to help hundreds of cubs if they only trust one person? The communication device crackled again. Commander Kim, this is Captain Dong-Soo Ryu from the Viridian Defense Corps. I'm coming to your location with 3 ships full of adult Viridians. We'll be there in 2 hours. Good, Commander Kim replied. Maybe the cubs will respond better. To their own people. Jiho wasn't so sure about that, but he didn't say anything. The cubs seemed very content sitting with him. 2 of them had fallen asleep against his legs. He could feel their tiny hearts beating fast, like they were still scared even while sleeping. Dr. Yoonbi Lee, the team's psychologist, arrived from searching another building. She was a quiet woman who usually stayed in the background. I found 12 more cubs hiding in the medical center, she reported. They wouldn't let me get close, but I could see them watching me from behind equipment. Did you try talking to them? Asked Dr. Bay. I tried everything. Soft voice, sitting quietly, offering food. Nothing worked. They just stared at me and moved away whenever I took a step toward them. Jiho looked up at Dr. Lee. Maybe I should try to visit them after these cubs are taken care of. How long can you sit there? Commander Kim asked. Your back must be getting sore. I'm okay for now, Jiho replied, though his legs were starting to feel numb. These little ones need comfort more than I need to move around. One of the cubs that had been sleeping woke up and looked around. It saw all the rescue team members watching and made a worried sound. Jiho spoke to it gently. It's okay, little one. They're friends. They want to help too. The cub looked at him with what seemed like understanding, but it still wouldn't look at the other team members. It climbed into Jiho's lap and curled up like a house cat. This is incredible, said Lieutenant Sato, still recording. It's like they see him as family. 2 hours later, they heard the sound of ships landing outside. Captain Ryu arrived with 15 adult Viridians. They were tall and graceful, with the same golden fur as the cubs, but longer faces and more human-like bodies. They moved with quiet steps and spoke in soft voices. Where are our children? Asked Captain Ryu. His voice was full of worry. Commander Kim pointed toward the building where Jiho sat. 6 of them are in there with our human doctor. But, Captain, you should know something strange is happening. What do you mean? The cubs won't go near anyone except the human. They run from all of us, including the medical team. Captain Ryu looked confused. That makes no sense. Cubs always trust healers and helpers. It's in their nature. He walked toward the building entrance, moving very slowly and making gentle sounds that Jiho had never heard before. The cubs inside heard him and lifted their heads. For a moment, Jiho thought they might run to their own people. Instead, the cubs pressed closer to Jiho and started making scared sounds. The smallest one began to shake. "It's okay," Jiho whispered to them. "He's here to help." Captain Ryo stopped at the doorway and stared. His eyes were wide with shock. "This is impossible," he said. "Cubs have never acted this way before." He tried calling to them in the Viridian language, making the same gentle sounds. The cubs listened but didn't move toward him. They looked at Jiho like they were asking him what to do. "May I come closer?" Captain Ryu asked Jiho. "Try moving very slowly," Jiho suggested. "They seem to get scared when anyone moves too fast." Captain Ryu took one small step forward. The cubs immediately started crying and tried to hide behind Jiho. The smallest one was shaking so hard that Jiho worried it might get sick again. "Stop," Jiho said quickly. "You're scaring them." Captain Ryu stepped back, looking hurt and confused. "These cubs were born in my settlement. I watched some of them take their first steps. Why are they afraid of me?" Another Viridian adult tried approaching from the side entrance. The same thing happened. The cubs became terrified and clung to Jiho like he was the only safe thing in the world. "This has never happened before," Captain Ryu said to Commander Kim. "In all of Viridian history, cubs have never rejected their own people." Dr. Lee stepped forward with her notebook. "Captain Ryu, has your species ever encountered humans before?" "No," he replied. "Humans are new to this part of the galaxy. We only learned about your species 3 years ago when you joined the Galactic Council. So there's no historical connection between our peoples?" "None at all." Dr. Lee wrote something down. "Then why would the cubs trust a human more than their own kind?" Nobody had an answer. They tried different approaches for the next hour. Viridian adults brought toys and special foods that cubs usually loved. They sang traditional songs that were supposed to make young ones feel safe. Nothing worked. The cubs only wanted to be near Jiho. When he tried to stand up to stretch his legs, they all stood up with him. When he sat back down, they sat too. It was like they thought he might disappear if they didn't watch him carefully. "Dr. Park," Commander Kim said, "I think you're going to be busier than we planned." As if to prove her point, they heard small voices calling from other buildings around the settlement. More cubs had heard the purring and were coming to investigate. Soon, Jiho could see little faces peeking around corners and from windows. "Here they come," whispered Lieutenant Sato. One by one, cubs began leaving their hiding places and walking toward Jiho. They ignored all the adult Viridians and rescue team members. Their eyes were fixed only on the human who had somehow become their anchor in a world that had turned frightening and strange. By evening, Jiho was surrounded by 18 cubs. All of them wanted to be as close to him as possible. The mystery was getting bigger, and nobody could explain why the only being these traumatized children trusted was a human they had never met before. "We need to figure this out," Commander Kim said as she watched the strange scene. "There are 500 more cubs on this planet, and they all might react the same way." Jiho looked down at the sea of furry faces looking up at him with complete trust. He had no idea why this was happening, but he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't let these children down. The morning sun cast long shadows across Moonwhisper Grove as Dr. Jiho Park woke up surrounded by sleeping cubs. 18 small bodies were curled around him like furry blankets. Some had their paws touching his arms. Others rested their heads on his legs. He had barely slept, afraid to move and wake them up. Commander Nari Kim approached quietly with a cup of hot coffee. "How are you feeling?" she whispered. "Stiff," Jiho whispered back. "But they seem better. Look, some of them are actually sleeping, deeply now instead of just staying alert." The smallest cub, the one Jiho had first helped, was sleeping right against his chest. Its breathing was steady and calm. Yesterday, it had been shaking with fear, but now it looked peaceful. "We have a problem," Commander Kim said softly. "Captain Ryu just got reports from the other settlements. The same thing is happening everywhere." Jiho carefully moved his arm without waking the cubs. "What do you mean?" "Every settlement on Viridia has the same situation. Cubs that won't go near anyone except humans. But Dr. Park, you're the only human on this planet." The weight of that fact hit Jiho like a cold wave. "How many cubs total?" 537 cubs across 7 settlements, Commander Kim replied. "All of them are alone, scared, and according to the reports, all of them run from every rescue worker except when they hear about a human being nearby." Lieutenant Hyun Sato joined them, holding her recording device and a thick folder of papers. "I've been documenting everything that happened yesterday," she said. "Look at this." She showed them video clips from her device. In each clip, rescue workers from different species tried to approach cubs. Crystalline healers with their gentle touch, aquatic empaths with their calming presence, even robotic medical units designed specifically for childcare. Every single time, the cubs ran away or hid. "But watch this part," Lieutenant Sato said, showing a clip of Jiho sitting with the cubs. "See how they immediately relax when he's near? Their body language completely changes." Dr. Yoonbi Lee walked over carrying her notebook and a cup of tea. "I've been thinking about this all night," she said. "In my 20 years of studying child psychology, I've never seen anything like this reaction." "What's your theory?" Commander Kim asked. "I don't have one yet. That's what worries me." Dr. Lee sat down carefully, far enough away not to disturb the cubs. Children usually have good instincts about who to trust, but this goes beyond instinct. It's like they've been programmed to only feel safe with humans. One of the cubs opened its eyes and looked around. When it saw Jiho, it made a happy purring sound and stretched like a house cat. The sound woke up 2 other cubs, who also began purring when they saw the human was still there. "Good morning, little ones," Jiho said gently. He had learned that talking to them in a calm voice made them feel better. Captain Minho Choi's voice came over the communication system. "Commander Kim, please come to the landing area. We have visitors." Commander Kim looked confused. "Visitors?" "A ship from the Galactic Medical Council just landed. They heard about our situation and want to help." 20 minutes later, Jiho watched from his spot with the cubs as 3 new beings approached the settlement. They moved like doctors, carrying medical equipment and speaking in quiet, professional voices. The first was Dr. Keela, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms. Her species was known across the galaxy for being the best at healing children. The second was Dr. Voss, whose people could sense illness from far away. The third was a robotic unit called Medbot 7, which was specially designed to care for young creatures of all species. "Where are the affected cubs?" Dr. Kayla asked Commander Kim. "Over there with our human doctor." Commander Kim pointed toward Jiho. "But I should warn you, they don't react well to strangers." Dr. Kayla looked confident. "I have worked with traumatized children of 47 different species. Fear is something that can be overcome with patience and the right approach." She walked slowly toward Jiho and the cubs, her 4 hands empty to show she meant no harm. She made soft clicking sounds that were supposed to calm young minds. The moment the cubs saw her, they started making scared crying sounds. They pressed against Jiho so hard that he worried they might hurt themselves. The smallest cub began shaking again. "It's okay," Jiho told them. "She's a doctor. She wants to help you feel better." But the cubs didn't care what he said. They only cared that a stranger was getting closer. Dr. Kayla stopped walking and knelt down. "Hello, little ones," she said in the universal childcare language that worked with most species. "I am here to help." The cubs cried louder. Two of them tried to climb onto Jiho's shoulders to get farther from Dr. Keela. "This is impossible," Dr. Keela said, looking shocked. "This language works with everyone." Dr. Voss tried next. His species could project feelings of safety and calm directly into young minds. He closed his eyes and focused, sending waves of peaceful thoughts toward the cubs. Instead of calming down, the cubs became more upset. They started making sounds Jiho had never heard before, deep, frightened calls that seemed to come from somewhere ancient and scared. "Stop," Jiho said quickly. "You're making it worse." Dr. Voss opened his eyes, looking confused and hurt. "My abilities have never failed before with children." Medbot 7 rolled forward on quiet wheels. "Perhaps mechanical assistance will be less threatening," the robot said in its gentle voice. It extended a small arm holding a toy that glowed with soft colors. The cubs took one look at the robot, and some of them tried to run away. Only Jiho's voice calling them back made them return to his side. "Fascinating," Dr. Lee said, writing notes, as fast as she could. "They're not just avoiding other species. They're avoiding any form of help that doesn't come directly from Dr. Park." Lieutenant Sato was recording everything. "I'm sending these videos to every research station in the galaxy. Someone has to have seen something like this before." Captain Dongsu Ryu arrived with more adult Viridians, hoping that larger numbers of their own people might make the cubs feel safer. 20 Viridian adults surrounded the area, all calling softly to the cubs in their own language. The cubs looked at their own people with sadness, but not trust. It was like they wanted to go to the adults, but something deep inside told them not to. "This is breaking my heart," Captain Ryu said to Commander Kim. "These cubs know us. We helped raise some of them. Why won't they come home?" Dr. Yuna Han arrived on a ship from the research station. She was a geneticist who specialized in how different species evolved. She carried a bag full of scientific equipment and had an excited look in her eyes. "I need to run some tests," she announced. "There has to be a biological reason for this behavior." She set up her equipment far from the cubs so they wouldn't get scared. "Dr. Park, I need to scan you while you're interacting with them. Maybe there's something special about human biology that attracts them." For the next hour, Dr. Han ran every test she could think of. She measured Jiho's heartbeat, his breathing, even the heat coming from his body. She tested the sound of his voice and the way he moved. "Anything?" Commander Kim asked. "Nothing unusual," Dr. Han replied, looking at her readings. "Dr. Park is a completely normal human. There's nothing special about his biology that should make these cubs trust him more than anyone else." "Then why do they?" asked Dr. Bay. "That's what we need to figure out." As the day continued, they tried everything they could think of. They had Jiho wear different clothes to see if that mattered. They had him speak in different languages. They even had him leave the area to see if the cubs would accept help from others when he was gone. Nothing worked. When Jiho left, the cubs just sat quietly and waited for him to return. They wouldn't eat, drink, or play until he came back. "It's like he's their anchor," Dr. Lee observed. Without him, they just shut down. By evening, word had spread across the galaxy about the strange situation on Viridia. Scientists, doctors, and researchers from dozens of worlds were sending messages offering help and theories, but none of their ideas worked. The cubs continued to trust only Jiho. "We're missing something big," Commander Kim said as the sun set over the settlement. "This isn't just about fear or trauma. There's something deeper happening here." Jiho sat with the cubs as they prepared to sleep for another night. 18 pairs of green eyes looked up at him with complete trust and love. He still had no idea why they felt this way about him, but he was starting to understand that finding the answer might be the most important thing he ever did. "Don't worry, little ones," he whispered to them. "We're going to figure this out. I promise." The cubs purred softly and settled down for the night, safe in the knowledge that their human protector was watching over them. But across the galaxy, scientists and researchers were working through the night trying to solve a mystery that seemed to have no logical answer. Something about humans was special to these cubs, and until they figured out what it was, 500 young Viridians would remain cut off from their own people, trusting only in the kindness of a single human doctor who had stumbled into the greatest puzzle of his life. Dr. Unahan stared at her computer screen with wide eyes. It was 3 in the morning and she had been working for 18 hours straight. The data from her tests on the Viridian cubs was showing something impossible. "Commander Kim," she called, over the communication system. "You need to see this right away." Commander Nari Kim arrived at the research tent 5 minutes later, still wearing her sleeping clothes. "What did you find?" Dr. Han pointed at a series of colorful brain scans on her screen. "These are recordings of the cubs' brain activity when different people approach them. Look at this." The first scan showed jagged red lines jumping all over the place. This is what happens when any non-human gets close to them. Their fear centers go crazy. Their little brains are screaming danger. She clicked to the next scan. This one showed calm blue and green waves. This is what happens when Dr. Park approaches. Complete calm. No fear at all. But Dr. Han, look at this part. She pointed to a section of the scan that glowed bright yellow. This area of their brain only lights up when they sense something they recognize as completely safe. Not just safe, something they are supposed to trust. Commander Kim leaned closer. "What do you mean, supposed to trust?" "I mean their brains are reacting like Dr. Park is family, like they've been waiting their whole lives to meet him." At that moment, Dr. Sunwoo Bei rushed into the tent holding a tablet. "Dr. Han, I need to show you something. I've been studying Viridian biology all night." She put her tablet on the table next to Dr. Han's computer. "Viridian cubs have something called an empathic detection system. It's like a natural lie detector built into their brains." "I've heard of that," Commander Kim said. "It helps them avoid dangerous animals on their planet. It's much more powerful than we thought," Dr. Bei continued. "These cubs can sense not just immediate danger, but also deep personality traits. They can tell if someone has ever hurt a child, if someone enjoys causing pain, even if someone might be dangerous in the future." Dr. Han looked excited. "That explains why they run from everyone else. But why do they trust humans?" "That's the strange part," Dr. Bei said. "According to my research, they should be able to sense that we're all good people trying to help. Their system should tell them that Dr. Keela and Dr. Voss are safe. But it doesn't." The 3 women stood quietly for a moment, thinking. "Unless," Dr. Han said slowly, "their system isn't just looking for good people. What if it's looking for something specific?" Before anyone could answer, Lieutenant Hyun Sato burst into the tent. "We just got a message from Agent Taehyun Lim at Galactic Intelligence. He says he found something important in the Viridian historical records." Commander Kim activated the communication system. "Agent Lim, this is Commander Kim. What did you find?" Agent Lim's voice came through clearly. "Commander, I've been searching through old Viridian text all night. Most of their ancient history was stored in a protected database that survived the plague. I found something very interesting." "Go ahead." "There are stories in their oldest books about visitors from the stars. The stories call them the peaceful ones from distant worlds. According to these texts, these visitors came during a time of great danger and helped save the Viridian people." Dr. Han and Dr. Bei looked at each other with surprise. "The stories say these peaceful visitors had no claws, no fangs, and no natural weapons. They couldn't hurt anyone even if they wanted to. The Viridians believed they were the safest beings in the universe." Commander Kim felt a chill run down her back. "Agent Lim, do these stories describe what these visitors looked like?" "Yes, Commander. According to the texts, they walked on 2 legs, had smooth skin instead of fur, and came from a world with a single yellow sun." "That sounds like humans," Dr. Bei whispered. "There's more," Agent Lim continued. The stories say that the peaceful ones promised to return when the Viridians needed them most. And Commander, the cubs in these stories could always recognize the peaceful ones, even when adults could not. The tent went completely silent. Agent Lim, Commander Kim said carefully, "How old are these stories?" "The oldest texts date back over 3,000 years, Commander." Dr. Han sat down heavily in her chair. "But humans didn't have space travel. 3,000 years ago, we barely had boats." "Maybe the stories are just myths," suggested Dr. Bay. Lieutenant Sato shook her head. "I don't think so. Remember, the Cubs' reaction to Dr. Park isn't just trust, it's recognition, like they've been waiting for him." Outside the tent, the morning sun was starting to rise. Dr. Jiho Park was already awake, surrounded by his 18 cubs. They were eating breakfast that he fed them by hand, purring contentedly. Dr. Soman Kwan arrived on the morning transport ship. She was an archaeologist who specialized in finding evidence of ancient space travel. She carried digging equipment and a bag full of scanning devices. "I heard about your situation," she said to Commander Kim. "If there really was ancient contact between humans and Viridians, there should be physical evidence somewhere on this planet." "Where would you look?" Commander Kim asked. "The stories mention a place called the Valley of First Meeting. According to Agent Lim's research, it's about 50 kilometers from here. Within 2 hours, Dr. Kwan was flying over Viridia in a small aircraft, scanning the ground below for anything unusual. Her equipment could detect buried metal, unusual rock formations, and anything else that didn't belong to the natural landscape. "Commander Kim," her voice came over the radio, "I'm finding something very interesting in the Valley of First Meeting." "What is it?" "There are metal objects buried deep underground. The metal composition doesn't match anything the Viridians could have made 3,000 years ago. It's too advanced. Could it be a crashed ship?" "Possibly. I'm detecting what looks like a large circular object about 30 meters underground. It's been there for a very long time." Back at the settlement, Dr. Park was having his own discovery. As he sat with the cubs, he noticed that the smallest one, the first one he had helped, kept touching a small pendant around its neck. "What's that, little one?" he asked gently. The cub held up the pendant so he could see it better. It was made of carved stone and showed a picture of 2 figures standing together. One figure had fur and a tail like a Viridian. The other figure looked remarkably human. Dr. Yunbi Lee was watching from nearby. "Dr. Park, can you ask the cub where it got that pendant?" Jiho pointed to the pendant and looked at the cub with questioning eyes. The small Viridian made soft sounds and pointed toward a large building in the center of the settlement. "I think it wants us to go somewhere," Jiho said. With all 18 cubs following close behind him, Jiho walked to the building the cub had indicated. It was older than the other buildings and covered with carved symbols that looked very ancient. Inside, they found a room filled with stone tablets covered in Viridian writing. But in the center of the room was something that made everyone stop and stare. It was a large stone carving showing humans and Viridians living together in peace. The humans in the carving were teaching Viridian children, sharing food and building things together. At the bottom of the carving were symbols that looked like they might be names. Dr. Lee ran her translation device over the symbols. "This name here," she said, pointing to symbols under one of the human figures. "It translates to something like Inho of the peaceful star." Jiho felt his heart skip a beat. "Inho. That's my family name in Korean. My grandfather's name was Inho Park. Dr. Park," Dr. Lee said quietly. "I think we're starting to understand why these cubs trust you." The cubs had followed them into the room and were now purring louder than ever. They seemed excited to be in this place like they had been, waiting to show it to Jiho all along. "They brought me here," Jiho realized. "They wanted me to see this." Outside, Dr. Kwan's voice came over the radio again. "Commander Kim, you need to get down here right away. I've found something that's going to change everything." "What is it, Dr. Kwan?" I've uncovered part of the buried object. Commander, it's definitely a spaceship. And based on the design and the symbols on the hull, I think it's human. Commander Kim looked at Dr. Han, Dr. Bay, and Lieutenant Sato. They all had the same thought. A human ship, Commander Kim said slowly, from 3,000 years ago. The mystery was starting to solve itself, but the answers were raising even bigger questions. How had humans reached Viridia thousands of years before they had space travel? And why did the cubs seem to remember them? As Jiho stood in the ancient room surrounded by purring cubs and stone carvings of his ancestors, he began to understand that this discovery was about to change everything humans thought they knew about, their own history. Dr. Soman Kwan stood at the edge of a deep hole in the Valley of First Meeting. Her digging machines had worked all day to uncover what lay buried beneath 3,000 years of dirt and rocks. What they found made her hands shake as she called. Commander Kim, you need to see this now, Dr. Kwan said into her communication device. Bring Dr. Park and anyone else who can help us understand what we're looking at. 2 hours later, Dr. Jiho Park stood at the edge of the same hole, still, surrounded by his 18 cubs. The little ones seemed excited to be in this valley, purring and looking around like they recognized the place. At the bottom of the hole was a spaceship unlike anything Jiho had ever seen. It was clearly human in design, but much older than any human technology he knew about. The metal was scratched and damaged, but symbols on the side were still clear enough to read. UNSS Explorer, Dr. Kwan read from the side of the ship. United Nations Spaceship Explorer. Dr. Park, this ship is from Earth. Commander Nari Kim climbed down into the hole with Dr. Yuna Han and Dr. Yunbi Lee. They walked around the ship, looking at every detail. The design is definitely human, Dr. Han said. But according to our history, humans didn't have ships like this 3,000 years ago. Agent Taehyun Lim arrived with a team of specialists and more equipment. I've been researching human historical records all night, he said. There are some very interesting gaps in our ancient history, times when entire groups of people simply disappeared from all records. Dr. Kwan used her tools to cut open a door on the side of the ship. Inside, they found something that made everyone stop talking. The ship was full of things that were clearly from ancient Earth, tools, clothes, books, and pictures. But most importantly, they found a logbook written in Old Korean. I can read some of this, Jiho said, looking at the old writing. It's very Old Korean, but I understand parts of it. He read slowly from the first page. Day 1 on the New World. The ship is damaged beyond repair. We have crashed on a planet with intelligent life. The people here look like large cats, but they are peaceful and kind. Dr. Lee listened carefully and took notes. Keep reading. Day 15. The cat people, who call themselves Viridians, have accepted us into their community. Their children are not afraid of us at all. In fact, the young ones seem to love being around humans. The adults say this has never happened before with any other species. Agent Lim found more books and papers scattered around the ship. There are personal logs from different crew members here. Listen to this one. He read from another book. My name is Colonel Inho Park. We have been living with the Viridians for 6 months now. Their cubs follow me everywhere I go. The adult Viridians say their children can sense the heart of any being, and they have decided that humans have good hearts. Jiho felt his legs go weak. Colonel Inho Park. That's my family name. My grandfather always said our family came from a long line of space explorers, but I thought he was just telling stories. There's more, Agent Lim continued reading. The Viridian elders have told us something amazing. They say their cubs are born with the ability to recognize beings who cannot lie, cannot hurt children, and cannot feel hatred. They call us the peaceful ones. Dr. Han was examining other objects in the ship. Look at this, she called out. She held up a device that looked like a medical scanner. This technology is more advanced than what we have now. How did ancient humans build this? Doctor. Kwan studied the device carefully. Maybe they didn't build it on Earth. Maybe they built it here, working together with the Viridians. They spent the rest of the day exploring the ship and reading the logbooks. The story that emerged was incredible. The UNSS Explorer had been an experimental ship built in secret by Earth's best scientists 3,000 years ago. It was meant to explore distant worlds, but something had gone wrong during its first journey. The ship had crashed on Viridia with 47 humans on board. The Viridians had welcomed the humans and helped them survive. Over time, the two species became like family. The humans taught the Viridians about technology and science. The Viridians taught the humans about living in peace with nature. But what happened to them? Commander Kim asked. If they lived here, where did they go? Agent Lim found the answer in the final entries of the logbook. According to this, after 20 years on Viridia, the humans built a new ship with Viridian help. They decided to return to Earth to bring back more people and start a real partnership between the two worlds. Did they make it back to Earth? Dr. Lee asked. The logs say they left Viridia, but there's no record of them ever reaching Earth. They might have gotten lost in space. Or their ship might have failed again. Dr. Kwan made a sad sound. So the Viridians waited for them to return, but they never came back. Until now, Jiho said quietly, looking at the cubs around him. They've been waiting 3,000 years for humans to come back. Dr. Han pulled up her brain scans on her tablet. This explains everything. The cub's empathic detection system wasn't just evolved to sense danger. It evolved to recognize humans specifically. But why? Commander Kim asked. Because over the 20 years that humans lived here, Viridian cubs learned that humans were the safest beings in the universe. They passed that knowledge down through their genes to every generation that came after. Agent Lim found one more important document in the ship. Listen to this final entry by Colonel Inho Park. He wrote, "We are leaving Viridia tomorrow, but we promise to return. The Viridians have become our family, and we will never forget them. If something happens to us and we cannot return, I hope that someday other humans will find this place and continue what we started here." Jiho felt tears in his eyes as he looked at the cubs. They never forgot us either. The smallest cub, the one that had first approached him, climbed into his lap and purred. It was like the little one was saying, "Welcome home." "Dr. Park," Dr. Kwan said softly, "I think you're not just helping these cubs. I think you're keeping a 3,000-year-old promise." As the sun set over the Valley of First Meeting, Jiho understood that his family had been connected to Viridia long before he was born. The cubs hadn't just randomly chosen to trust him. They had been waiting their whole species' history for the descendants of their ancient human friends to return. "We're home," he whispered to the cubs. "Finally, we're home." The cubs purred louder, and for the first time since the plague, they looked completely happy and safe. The peaceful ones had returned, just as their ancestors had promised they would. 6 months after the discovery in the Valley of First Meeting, Dr. Jiho Park stood in the main hall of the new Human Viridian Cultural Center on Viridia. The building was beautiful, made with both human technology and Viridian craftsmanship. Large windows let in the purple light of Viridia's twin moons. Around him, 18 young Viridians played and laughed. They were no longer the scared, thin cubs he had first met. Now they were healthy, happy, and growing fast. But they still followed Jiho everywhere he went. "Uncle Jiho," called Kira, the smallest one who had first approached him. She was learning to speak both human languages and Viridian. "Look what I built." She showed him a small model of a spaceship made from Viridian crystal and human metal. It looked like a combination of the ancient UNSS Explorer and modern Viridian designs. "That's beautiful, Kira," Jiho said, kneeling down to look at her creation. "Are you going to be a shipbuilder when you grow up?" I want to build ships that can carry humans and Viridians to new worlds together, she said with excitement in her green eyes. Commander Nari Kim walked over with a smile on her face. She was now the director of Human-Viridian Relations, a job that hadn't existed before the Cubs changed everything. The Galactic Council just approved our request, she told Jaiho. Humans can now adopt Viridian cubs who have lost their families, and Viridian families can adopt human children who need homes. Really? Jaiho asked. That's wonderful news. The adoption program had been Dr. Yunbi Lee's idea. After studying the bond between humans and Viridian cubs for months, she had discovered that it worked both ways. Human children who met Viridians also felt an immediate sense of safety and trust. Captain Minho Choi entered the hall with a group of young adult Viridians. These were cubs who had been rescued from other settlements on Viridia. All of them had been cared for by human volunteers who had come from across the galaxy to help. Dr. Park, said Juno, a young Viridian who was now 16 years old. I just got accepted to the Galactic Space Academy. I want to be the first Viridian to serve on a human starship. And I want to be the first human to serve on a Viridian exploration vessel, said Maya, a human teenager who had been part of the volunteer program. Dr. Yunahan walked over carrying a tablet full of research data. Dr. Park, you need to see the latest results from our genetic studies. She showed him charts and graphs that were covered in colorful lines. We've been studying the DNA of cubs from all over Viridia. The ability to recognize humans isn't just something they learned. It's actually written into their genetic code. What does that mean? Jaiho asked. It means that every Viridian cub born from now on will have the same reaction to humans that these cubs had. They will always see humans as family. Agent Taehyun Lim joined their conversation. He had been promoted to Director of Galactic Historical Research after his discoveries about the ancient connection between humans and Viridians. We've found similar evidence on 12 other worlds, he reported. It seems that the crew of the UNSS Explorer visited many planets during their journey. Each world has stories about peaceful visitors from the stars. Are you saying there might be other species out there who trust humans the same way? Commander Kim asked. Exactly. We think the ancient human explorers created bonds with dozens of different alien species. We just never knew about it because most of our ancient history was lost. Dr. Soman Kwan arrived with exciting news of her own. The archaeological team just found something amazing in the ruins of the ancient Viridian capital. It's a star map showing the route the UNSS Explorer took through this part of the galaxy. She spread out a large paper covered with symbols and lines. If we follow this map, we might be able to find other worlds where humans made ancient friendships. Lieutenant Hyun Sato, who was now Captain Sato, had been documenting everything that happened on Viridia. I've been thinking about something, she said. What if the reason humans are good with children of all species isn't an accident? What do you mean? Dr. Lee asked. What if humans evolved specifically to be peacekeepers in the galaxy? What if our natural kindness toward young beings is meant to help us connect with other species? The group stood quietly, thinking about this idea. You might be right, Dr. Han said slowly. Humans are one of the few species that adopts children from other species naturally. We take care of animals, we protect the weak, and we always try to help those who are smaller than us. Kira tugged on Jaiho's sleeve. Uncle Jaiho, are you going to stay on Viridia forever? Jaiho smiled and picked her up. I'm going to stay as long as you need me to, little one. I'll always need you, she said, hugging him tightly. But even as he said this, Jaiho knew that his role was changing. The cubs were growing up and becoming independent. Soon they would be young adults who could take care of themselves. Dr. Park. Commander Kim said, The Galactic Council has offered you a new position. They want you to lead the first joint human Viridian exploration mission to find other worlds where ancient humans made contact. Jaiho looked around at the young Viridians who had become like his own children. What do you think? He asked them. Should we go explore the galaxy together? Yes, they all said at once, their voices filling the hall with excitement. But only if we can all go together, added Juno. Humans and Viridians should explore space as partners, just like our ancestors did. 1 year later, the starship New Explorer launched from Viridia with a crew of both humans and Viridians. Captain Jiho Park stood on the bridge next to his co-captain, Kira, who had grown into a brilliant young scientist. Course set for the Kepler 442 system, reported the navigation officer, a human who had been raised by a Viridian family. All systems ready, called out the engineering chief, a Viridian who had studied at human universities. Take us out, Captain Park ordered. As the ship moved away from Viridia and into deep space, Jiho thought about how much had changed. What had started as a simple rescue mission had become the beginning of a new era in galactic history. The cubs that had once been afraid of everyone except humans were now confident young adults exploring the stars. They carried with them the ancient friendship between their species and the promise of finding even more allies among the stars. Uncle Jiho, Kira said as she watched the stars through the main window, thank you for keeping the promise your ancestor made. Thank you for waiting for us to come home, Jiho replied. Behind them, Viridia grew smaller in the distance, but the bonds they had discovered there would last forever. Humans and Viridians were no longer separate species sharing the same galaxy. They were family, just as they had been 3,000 years ago, and somewhere among the distant stars, other species might be waiting for the peaceful ones to return, just as the Viridian cubs had waited. The new explorer was ready to find them and bring the galaxy's lost family back together, one world at a time. The cubs had chosen their human, and in doing so, they had chosen a future where no species would ever have to face the darkness alone again.